So, a bit late for say happy birthday to Lobo Leasing, but tell us about its origins and how you initially built the platform before we move on to look at other things.
Yeah, sure. So Lobo Leasing was originally set up as a captive leasing company by Blackstone to deploy capital. And in the last 4 years, we've changed the business model. So we did a management buyout to become a privately owned company with myself and the previous chairman, Bill Wolfe. And the business model is to provide helicopter and niche aircraft management services and origination services to a range of different investors.
So what do you wish you'd known then that you know now when you when you worked on the platform?
In terms of setting it up with its current...
All of it, yeah. The benefit of hindsight. Share us that benefit.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think if I'd known the degree of demand there would be for this kind of independent helicopter management services, we would have grown the team more rapidly, which is something we're now focused on. So that would be what we would have done differently had I had the opportunity to go back in time.
Yeah, okay. Well, hindsight's a wonderful thing. How's business now? Bring us up to date. How's it today?
Yeah, it's very good. So we have just over 60 helicopters that we're managing, which makes our platform sustainable.
Across all types?
Across all types, and there's some firefighting aircraft in there as well. So we were able to close a huge number of deals when, to be honest, we really needed it as we were transitioning to the new business model. And now we're kind of incremental growth and adding aircraft on. This year's been really kind of onesie-twosie so far. But we're hoping for some bigger deals over the next month or so, and it's going to be a successful year at the end of it.
And what types of helicopter account for the biggest proportion in your fleet?
The H125, actually.
Yeah.
So I think we have an unusual ability to provide operating lease solutions on that aircraft, which is normally kind of outside the focus, at least, of the other lessors, because it's a smaller value, and so the transaction costs mount up. But we've really focused on that, focused on keeping the transaction costs low, and so we've managed to do a load of 125 deals over the past sort of 18 months.
Yeah. And how would you say Lobo fits into the increasingly competitive lessor landscape?
Yeah, so I think our unique selling point, or one of our unique selling points, I would say, is that we are a privately owned platform. So we don't have a captive capital source, which I think is really not matched by any other leasing company, leasing platform.
So apart from lots of worry for you personally, what does that look like as a business benefit in terms of your operation?
Yeah, well, so if you are an investor looking at investing in helicopters, and you want to do, you don't want to invest upfront, at least in your own team, then we can offer a management service that isn't distracted by having a shareholder that, however much you kind of dress it up, at the end of the day, if you have a shareholder that wants to invest in helicopters, that shareholder is going to be prioritized above any other people you're providing services to. That just has to be the case.
Yeah. So is more competition always good news for the industry, do you think?
I think it's good news for someone in the industry, right? So I guess, to be honest, more competition on the lessor side isn't good for us, but it's good for operators. So it's always good for someone.
Do you think we'd likely see more consolidation coming down the line?
In operators or lessors?
Either or.
I really don't know.
Yeah.
I think probably not would be my best guess, but who knows?
Perhaps I should ask the Competition and Management Authority. They might have a better view on it.
Yeah, indeed.
Okay. So Lobo's attracted new investors into the industry. How and why are you getting that interest now?
Yeah, and I must say, to begin with, it's true that Lobo has attracted new investors in, but really I have to say that that's Lobo working in close partnership with our capital partners. So, I mean, for example, with the Level Leasing joint venture, where we have a joint venture with E&P, I mean, that's very clear how that works. E&P, we handle the capital raising side of that, and we handle the kind of operator deal generation side of that. That's been very successful. But that kind of division is actually what we do with all of our capital partners. So there's so much work going on for our capital partners in being able to raise capital, and we're supporting them. And really the biggest support we give, apart from our kind of experience and things like that, and insights on the deal, is the platform we have and our capabilities and remarketing and the finance, accounting, tax, legal expertise we have in-house.
What about debt?
Yeah, so I mean, there's already been an extensive panel on that, and I think it's what's said has already been said, and you can see the size of the panel indicates there's more debt options, but those options are limited in scope. Although there's more players involved, they're all kind of offering the same thing, which is a sizable transaction. They always want it to be a sizable transaction. And in many cases, they also want it to be a portfolio transaction with diversified risk across the portfolio. So rather than addressing that, which I think is a very positive sign that there's more participants in the debt market and for lessors, where I think there's a missing piece in the debt is debt solutions for one-off aircraft for operators. So not competing with your commercial lenders, so a higher interest rate, a higher LTV. We see a lot of demand for that, and that debt is just not out there. And I would like to be part, or Lobo would like to be part of providing the solution to that.
So Schumacher was right, small can be beautiful then?
Yeah.
In terms of helicopter leasing, at least?
Yeah, I think there's, I mean, we were talking about the 125 earlier, and that's a really attractive asset if you can get over those initial transaction costs. It's such a liquid asset, and there's already an established demand for leasing it. So apart from the asset values, everything about an aircraft like the 125 is fantastic from a leasing perspective. Yeah.
Any other types that you find particularly attractive?
Yeah, so I shouldn't really go on about the 125. It's just because we've done so many deals on that type. But I think that would go on for any of the singles. So the 109, the 119, the 407, all of them are interesting.
And what geographies and what markets are looking loaded with potential for you?
So we've done a lot of stuff in Brazil recently. I mean, everyone's been saying that, and I agree with that. We've also, because we have a line of Euro funding, we've been kind of very Euro specific, and we've actually moved some of our team to Europe in order to be able to focus more on that. So we're also seeing fleet renewal in Europe generating lots of interesting opportunities.
And how do you choose which investors are right for different transactions? How do you make that calculation?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the transactions choose the investor more than us choosing it. Yes. So the transactions that we have that come in, really it's almost always clear what investor we should work with on that transaction. So all of the capital partners we have different appetite in terms of the size of transaction, jurisdictional risk, assets, that sort of thing. And so it's really quite simple to, if you like, select an investor that we would work with on a particular transaction. And once we do make that selection, we would not work with another investor at the same time. So that's clear for everyone who we're working with. If the investor's putting their time into it, we don't want to be also running another process with someone else. That's a cardinal rule of how we do business. Yeah.
Now, you've ordered electric aircraft. What led to that calculation?
So some time ago now, we ordered the Nuva, and it's a hybrid drone, and I think the fact it's a cargo drone is the key here, rather than it necessarily being an electric or hybrid aircraft. And so we really believe in the cargo drone market, something we're willing to invest our own money in, and so we think there's an interesting opportunity there.
Cargo not carrying passengers, though?
No, it's not a passenger aircraft. So obviously it's going to take a lot longer for passenger carrying drones to come onto the market. So one of the attractions of the cargo drone is that we see it being deployed commercially more quickly.
I see. And that you find that a safer, financial and more attractive, at least initially, as an environment?
Yeah, we find it more attractive in terms of making an investment there, because our investment's more likely to be returning revenue in a shorter period.
Which spookily mirrors the Curtis Jennings of the 1920s in America, doesn't it? Flying the mail, the US mail, rather than actually precious and vulnerable things like people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Have we got any questions for Dan from the floor? If you have, asked them on Slido, Yeah, I was coming on to this. Does Lobo take residual risk?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So in some of the relationships we have with capital partners, we have an element where we share in the residual value risk.
Yeah.
So depending on how well the investment goes, we are paid differently. And something we're also looking at, or we have done actually now, is some of our direct investments. Now, we have to be very careful with that because we don't want to create any conflicts with our capital partners. But I think it's important in order for us to really provide the best service to investors, for us to a small degree to be a helicopter investor ourselves. Because that gives you the insight of what it actually feels like to invest in helicopters. And we're in a helicopter investing conference, but there's actually not many people in the room who are actually investing in helicopters. Most people that invest in helicopters don't even realize they are.
We've got a few.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, I mean, sticking with residual value, I mean, how do you think the industry should approach residual value for things like eVTOLs which haven't yet been built or haven't flown or are certainly not certified? Isn't that going to be difficult?
Yeah, it's certainly very difficult. So you can obviously talk to the OEM, that they're going to be very upbeat naturally, and you have to form a view on that and be comfortable that you're going to be paid accordingly for that risk you're taking.
What key question would you ask an OEM about that?
I would ask them about whether or not they've, in terms of a kind of regulatory discussion, which they'll already be having, have they got kind of an end of life for the airframe? I would talk to them about how easy it is to kind of swap out the technology that they have for things that's obviously going to develop, like batteries. How easy is it to move that out and replace it with newer technologies? And then you can kind of form a view of how sustainable the aircraft is in terms of a long residual value.
How much damage do you think was done, if any, by the over-promising of eVTOLs at the Paris Olympics and all the rest of it, those promises?
I don't think it was really any damage done at all. I think it's amazing what's happened with eVTOLs. I mean, if you let a government or governments the job of developing the eVTOL industry, we'd be basically nowhere. Instead, it's been left to private enterprise to do that largely. Huge progress has been made. A lot of capital has been destroyed, but we've made progress, and it's moving so much faster than it would do in any other structure.
Well, I'll come and track you down after the LA Games and see if you have the same answer after that. Does Lobo have a view on financing low-time, age-used helicopters?
I mean, that's kind of the core of our business, is doing sale and leaseback on used helicopters, and whether they're low time or high time doesn't really matter to us, to be honest.
Well, let's put numbers to it. What's high time and low time? I mean, certainly in offshore, it's 10, 15 years for primary life? I mean, put some numbers to low and high.
Well, we think about time in terms of the age of the airframe, then we have no problem doing deals on aircraft that are 12, 15 years old.
Yeah.
It all depends on the price point and on what deal are we doing on it.
Yeah. So coming back to drones, I know Bristow has done some work on cargo drones and transport. We're certainly thinking about that. Do you have a view on hybrid cargo drones in the oil and gas sector?
Yeah, and there's a natural application there of using a cargo drone to move out equipment to offshore oil rigs. That's certainly one of the initial possible uses of the Nuva. And the advantage there is that it's not carrying passengers, as we talked about before.
Yeah.
And potentially it could be earlier approved from a regulatory perspective to moving offshore.
Okay. So I won't ask what are the milestones on that journey, but what are the signposts on that journey to reach that opportunity in oil and gas? You mentioned regulatory.
I think it's
technology.
I think it's not a technology. The technology will be there. It will be a regulatory matter. That's why I think it probably will first see the hybrid cargo drone deployed in the humanitarian kind of crisis scenarios first, and that will prove the technology, and that will form the basis for it.
Which we're sort of seeing with companies like Zipline, aren't we, in Africa and things like that?
Yeah, that's right.
But in oil and gas, five years, do you think, or?
I think that's ambitious, but achievable.
Achievable. Okay. So what next for Lobo then?
So the next for Lobo is going to be improving our service, maintaining our service. We are basically putting all of the revenue that we're bringing in from servicing and arrangement fees into that. So in terms of rewarding the team, but also building our infrastructure, new developments like our investor platform, which we're hoping to bring online later this year. We're also super focused on controlling our costs. At the end of the day, we are a cost to the investor we work with. And because of the transition that we talked about at the beginning of this session, we had to be laser focused on costs in order to survive as a business. And so we're going to continue that. Doesn't mean not spending money, it just means spending money in sensible ways. And we're also going to continue with the direct investment, which is really important to us, as I explained before. And then the other element we're focused on at the moment is growing the team.
How big's the team now, and how big would you like it to be?
So the team's 7 people at the moment, and I think we're looking to kind of grow that up to kind of 9 or 10.
Yeah. Okay. So small and agile.
Don't queue all up at once, but certainly interested to hear from anyone.
Okay, you're taking CVs if anyone's got one.
Absolutely.
Okay, right. So how do customers measure your performance in terms of your deliverables to them as you don't have any capital invested and are not at risk?
Yeah, well, as I said, in some cases, we sort of effectively do have capital invested because of our performance fee at the end of the transaction. But in terms of measuring our performance, once that happens every day, we work with capital partners that are very demanding, and none of them fail to mention if they're not satisfied with something. So we are constantly kept on our toes. I think good asset management and transaction management is something that you know when you see it. It's actually really hard to achieve.
What are the elements, what are the ingredients in that particular recipe, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's no rocket science, but I think it's having really good processes, checklists, and experience of things that have gone wrong in the past, and then having the attitude where you acknowledge things that haven't gone well, you really think about why they haven't, and then you change that going forward so it doesn't happen again. Yeah.
Would it be wildly optimistic to hope for more stability in the helicopter sector after the tempests and the sunny uplands and the things I mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I mean,
or is that a wild hope, do you think?
Well, I'm not sure it's something we should necessarily hope for. I think a bit of instability is actually good in terms of shaking up kind of new ideas and keeping things fresh.
Opportunity as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Fixed wing leasing?
So yes, so we have a quite considerable fleet of firefighting fixed-wing aircraft through the Level platform, so yes.
Do you see that growing as the firefighting season becomes one omni season worldwide?
Yeah, we see that growing, so I think that the asset, in terms of the management of the asset, is actually very similar to a helicopter. The key factor there is we understand the firefighting industry and we understand the operators there, and that's actually more of a hurdle than understanding the fact it's a fixed-wing aircraft rather than a helicopter.
What do you think about margins in the sector, which aren't overly strong, are they?
I mean, firefighting can be lucrative in terms of lease rentals if you can accept the risk, which is generally speaking a lack of long-term underlying contracts and shorter lease terms. Yeah,
and will you be returning to the twin-engine market?
Oh, well, we have returned, right? So most of our fleet are twin-engine aircraft.
Yeah, of course you have. So paint us a picture of how Lobo looks and its place in the industry in 2030.
Oh, 2030 is a long way away, but if I had to kind of pick a perfect picture of us in 2030, it would be kind of set up as we are now with 130 aircraft under management, a team probably double the size we are, and that I think would be the right place to be. There is a kind of a limit to this business model because we work with a number of capital partners. We need to keep all of them satisfied in terms of the service we're delivering, but also delivering them a deal flow. Yeah. So if we end up with 10 investors, it's very difficult to kind of think that we'd be able to deliver, I suppose, the personal service we want to, but also the deal flow that we feel an obligation to do so.
So, I mean, is there a sense in which there is a perfect size for Lobo, and beyond that it would be challenging to deliver the service that you do?
Yeah, well, I hope you remember this if we reach 200 helicopters. But actually, I do think the perfect size for Lobo in its current setup is about 120. 120,
service to customers. Dan Roberts, CEO of Lobo Leasing, thank you so much for that.
Super, thanks very much. Thank you.